Hi guys, welcome back to the second part of this video where we were talking about materials and how to render them correctly. I did a little explanation of how the light bounces on them and how different surfaces create different reflections and how shiny is nothing but a very smooth surface and rough creates matte surfaces. So if you haven't seen it, check out my video, check out the link, and you can see that video and then come back to this one. So in today's video, we're just gonna work on three simple cubes. It's just gonna be, I do a cube because it's a very simple shape and that we're not confusing about what's going on and we can focus on what we're doing, which is the materials. So by doing a cube, I did one that is matte, one that is like semi-glossy, and one that is like shiny glossy. And I did that just using my grayscale markers. So with the grayscale, we're not getting confused by adding color. And I only used my number 1, my 3, my 5, my 7, my 9. And that's it. I didn't even go to black, so I didn't punch the full contrast. So I have this special table that I created so I can record. So I have my camera mounted on top of the paper. And then when I rotate the paper, it rotates with the camera, which is kind of cool. It still has a little tweaks to make it not shaky and stuff like that. I have to figure out, but it's looking better. Okay guys, so today we're gonna do the part 2 of the video that I started last week, which was more to try to help you understand how materials reflect and how you can render them, how you do something matte against something shiny. So today we're not gonna draw a car, we're gonna draw some simple shapes to make this easier for you. I'm gonna render it with different materials so you can understand the difference from it. Okay, I'm just gonna use my regular pencil and my markers. This is my very thin pencil. This is the one I use the most for most of my sketching. And it's a very convenient pencil to use because it doesn't bleed with the marker and it stays sharp longer. I have a video talking about it. Always use your electric sharpener, a lot faster, saves you a lot of time. And start with a new clean paper. And what I just did there is I always take one of my top pages and put it behind the other page because that page keeps getting damaged by the page under keeps getting damaged by the pencils and the markers and stuff. So for me to save my other marker paper, I always take that top page, put it on the bottom, and then when I'm done working with this one, then I'll slide that one again and again. So I'm using that same page to pretty much destroy it and save the pages before it. So today we're gonna start something super simple, right? Okay, so we're gonna start with a simple cube, and that's gonna help you just see the materials the way they are, right? So if I go like this, so we have a cube, we have the shadow of the cube, which we'll go into detail of that one later. Right now I'm just gonna kind of indicate it, and I'm gonna take my markers. So I'm gonna take my just my grayscale to keep it simple for now. So I'm gonna take 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and black. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say where the light is coming from, right? So if the light is coming from this side, we're gonna have the lightest side will be the top, right? So I'm gonna take my number 1 marker. Then I'm gonna take my number 3, which is my second lightest side. And I have to get used to drawing on this board. And then I'm gonna take my backside, which is the number 5, right? I'm gonna fill it in. So by controlling just the tones, you get a very three-dimensional piece to it, and it starts to create volume, and that's very important. A lot of people, when they see my cars, they tell me it looks like it's coming out of the paper, and the thing is, that's how you control it, by controlling the light and the different tones on the surface. So now we have a cube that it's this is my number 1 marker, that's my number 3, that's my number 5, but the thing is, nothing is lit up exactly the same all around. So what I do is, to make it a little more dynamic and realistic, I actually modify the tones a little bit so it's not perfectly even. So my number 1 is not all perfectly number 1. So check this out. I'm gonna leave the front corner a little lighter than the back side of it, just because I want my biggest change of contrast up front, because that's what brings people's eyes to your drawing. So you want to have your contrast and your change of tones up front where they can see them, and that's where their eyes are going to go. Where you have no contrast and not a lot of change of tone, that's where people are going to ignore it. So that's usually towards the back of the drawing. So I'm drawing a car, the front nose, like the front top corner, is where I put all my detail and all my contrast, and as I go back I lose some of that contrast and some of that detail, so that way I control where the people looking at my artwork are looking at, or my design. So now I'm going to take the number 7 and just put the shadow on the back. Actually, no, you know what? Now I'm going to take the number 3 again and just play with the tone a little bit of what I was working on. So if you see the top corner, I'm going to add a little bit of contrast. And the cool thing is, if I go over to the number 5 over there, I don't care because it's darker. So you have to know where you can make mistakes and where you can't. So I can always go with a lighter marker over a darker one, but I cannot go the other way around. So now we have the 1 with the 3 and the 5. And then again the 5, I'm gonna punch, I'm using my number 5 again, I'm gonna punch that top corner. And you see how that contrast right on this area is popping out. So it's making my cube look a lot more three-dimensional. And then I'm gonna grab my shadow. I'm gonna start with a number 7. I'm gonna clean the edge. The 7 is dry. Okay, so I'm gonna start with my number 7. I'm gonna hit my outlines, and same thing, I can do this again, what I was doing with the cube. I want to control the tone, so not all my number 7 is exactly the same tone. To make it a lot more dynamic, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go again closer to where the cube is, and I'm going to punch out that contrast, and then I'm going to let it fade away. So markers, you always have to clean them up with pencil at the end so it doesn't look like super blurry. So if you see here, I'm going to put my ground, put my other ground on this side. I'm going to put this one a little bit right here. And then the front edge, I'm going to clean it with a white pencil because that's where the light is hitting it. So just like that, we have a three-dimensional cube that has a little shape to it. So if you see this cube, it has not a lot of change of contrast and in tone. So this is kind of like a matte cube. It's the light is pretty even. The lightest tone against the darkest tone is very similar. Now let's try another cube, but let's make it a little shinier. Not as shiny as like a chrome. Make it shiny like a painted car. So again, we're going to draw our cube. So same thing, the light is coming from the same direction. We're gonna make it a lot shinier than the last one. So this one's kind of matte. And the way I'm gonna keep this shiny is I'm gonna work my marker super fast towards the front, so then I leave like a perfect white on the front of it. So that's gonna have a bigger change of tone than the last one. And I'm gonna have my 3, which is gonna create a lot of contrast right there. And then I'm gonna finish it with a number 1 on the bottom, so I have a biggest change of tone around my cube. And I'm gonna have a little bit of random reflections that's also gonna show how, I don't know if you remember, I was showing you that it reflects whatever is around it. So if I reflect some random stuff on it, it's gonna immediately start to look a little shinier than the other one that has like no reflections on it, because it's just perfectly evenly lit. Now I'm gonna go with the 7, oops, and I'm gonna go punch out the contrast on that front corner. And I'm gonna put my shadow. I have to get used to drawing with this table, which is like rotating with the camera, so it can make it easier for you, but it's a little tricky because he doesn't hold my paper steady and he moves, so I have to make sure that I do a good job holding it down so I don't move it while I'm trying to throw a line. So now you're gonna have some of that reflection from the shadow going into the cube. So if you see the difference from this cube from the last cube, I don't know if you can tell the difference, but this one's matte. This one is a little shinier to it, has a little bit of reflection. The shadow is reflecting into the cube. You have like different tones. It's picking up some light from the actual white paper under it. So there's all these tricks that is gonna make your cube start to look shinier and shinier and shinier, and that's how you're gonna represent your materials. So now let's go with a super chromy one, which would be similar to this, but with even higher contrast. Okay, so we're gonna start again with the 1. Gonna work that back edge. I'm gonna put like super random reflections on it. Then we're gonna do the number 3 on the front. But what I'm gonna do this time is I'm gonna go from 3 to 1 to 0 on the back, on the bottom, and you'll see how that's gonna make it like it's picking up a lot more light from the floor because it's reflective. So by it being super shiny, it's gonna pick up a lot more tone to it. Random reflections on it. And I'm gonna punch the contrast so much that I'm actually gonna use the number 5 on the front corner over here. just random reflections that it picks up from its surroundings. We're gonna go 5. Same thing with the backside. I'm gonna go with the number 5, but then I'm gonna go with the number 3, which was whatever I used on the front side. So if you've seen what I'm creating, it's a way bigger change of tone. A way bigger, a change of tone. So if you see on this one, I'm only working my number 1, my number 3, and my number 5. And this one I have my number 1 and the 0, which was white. This one I'll have my number 3 to my number 1, and this one I had the number 5 to the 7. So if you see, I'm starting to add more numbers to it, more percentages of tone. And with this one, I have my 1 to the 0, I have my 5 to the 3 to the 0, I have also the 1 in here, I have 5, 3. So this one is going to pick up some tone from the floor, and it's almost like a little messier. And especially with cubes, it's harder to control the reflections. When there's more volume to the surfaces, you can do a better controlled reflections, because then the way the metal bends, it controls how the reflection is going to look. But on a cube, since it's flat, almost like a mirror, you can almost just make up the reflections because it's just whatever it's reflecting in front of it. And then it's gonna pick up the shadow. I'm gonna put the shadow first. So now what I'm gonna do is slowly, I'm gonna reflect that shadow into the back of the cube, because it's like we said before, it's like a mirror. So it's gonna actually mirror that shadow. Then I'm gonna darken my shadow where it's closest to the cube. I'm gonna kill some of this brightness on the back side. But here's the thing, it's just when things get too shiny, it kind of like takes away the rules of your 1, 2, 3, because it's picking up light from all different directions, from the reflection from the ground, from its surroundings. So it kind of kills that 1, 2, 3. So when I'm drawing cars, even though I got taught to do 1, 2, 3, I do that with the tires, I do that with all the matte materials. But when it gets shiny, I kind of throw those rules out of the window, and I try to figure out different ways to make that volume still look 3D, but in a shiny way. Corner. And then the final touch to this would be to add a little bit of highlight to it, because since this is so shiny, it's actually gonna have like where the light hits it. You can have on the edges and stuff like that, just shininess. Same to this one, it's gonna have a little bit of shininess, not as much as the other one. And then the last one over here is not gonna have that much change of tone. So that's how you go from matte to medium gloss or glossy to super shiny reflective. I hope you learned something from this. So I hope this helps you understand a little better about how to make things shiny and matte. So next week we're gonna go with a cylinder, which looks a lot more like the side of a car. It's a lot more simpler surface, but it has like a roundness to it instead of just being flat like a cube. And then I'm gonna add a little bit of color for you to understand better how to start creating your own designs, your own cars, and making them look nice and shiny. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe if you haven't done so. I do videos every week. I try to keep it simple but steady. Hopefully steady wins the race, and you're gonna learn so much, because for me, it's when they explain to me how to do something and I understand it, it's a lot easier for me to do it later than when they just tell me how to do it and I do it, but then I forgot why I did it that way. So I hope you enjoyed this video and see you guys next week. Take care.